All right. The rapid onslaught of the coup d'etat of boxing continues in quick succession with Sneak Attack coming to you live on YouTube on this pretty decent Sunday afternoon over here in Europe. As always, joined by my co-host, the Chief Executive Officer, Head of Telecommunications, the Visual Scorecard. How you doing?
Well, doing well.
You
Nothing
should say,
special.
Mr. Insomnia as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's a very accurate description. Yeah, bro.
Yeah, you know what I mean? The essence of Sneak Attack is just to review the drama that took place yesterday afternoon. The weigh-in of for us anyway, it's been one of the most anticipated fights in the last whatever number of years, 8 years, etc. After conducting extensive film analysis, which went out just a few days ago, we thought we'd come back and review the weigh-in, and we were still contemplating our definitive picks to see if there's any variables have come into the equation, i.e. how both fighters made the weight, their physicality, how they've been looking, any signs of significant weight drawn aspects that could perhaps make a significant impact in the outcome of the fight. Weigh-in took place yesterday in Dallas, Texas. Both fighters, ultra professionals they are, both came in, made the weight. The fight is on. Both Roman Gonzalez and Juan Francisco Estrada weighed in at a very healthy 114 pounds, 0.8. Interesting. Both of them came in bang on, pretty comfortably inside the 115 pound weight threshold. Gonzalez looking, as he pretty much does all the time, he's not really blessed with any bodybuilding DNA, etc. There's no sort of muscle memory there. He comes in, just looks ultra relaxed, comfortable. Is not too engrossed in any sort of stare downs, etc. Believes in his ability, but Estrada a little bit more pumped up, as we knew, came in at 114.8, looked in good physical condition, slightly better muscle definition. Both fighters looked as we expected them to look. I don't think there was any surprises there. In comparing their statures to the weigh-in from November 2012, when the fight took place at 108 pounds. Very similar. Estrada looked a little bit better definition even back then. But he was coming down in weight, fighting at 108 for the first time. But Gonzalez, incidentally, the fight before, fought at 112.5 pounds. So their weights were kind of fluctuating between flyweight and junior flyweight. But currently both fighters are sort of seasoned, been at super flyweight for a number of years now. So it's a routine. Yeah, the fight is on. Official? What are your thoughts on the weigh-in?
Well, first of all, I would add one thing to your description of this very episode. And what I wanted to add is that we are also going to give our final picks. But okay, we'll save it for later. Now, but the weight in, both of them looked very, very good in my opinion. Uh, well, their
Your
physiques are very different, and on Estrada's side, I do think that he was looking wonderful.
official
Yeah.
enemy forces must be jamming your telecommunications, because I didn't quite hear that.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So what I was saying. Can you hear me any better now? Hello. 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 Can you hear me?
No, I can't hear you.
Oh. I'll leave and I'll come back.
Okay. Just wait for official to come back. I'm gonna have a look at the betting situation. Kind of look at the frequency. Just look at the position across all of the European markets. I think the odds have been
Yes, so I'm back. Can you hear me now?
yeah, that sounds better.
Oh, great. I don't know what's happening, but yeah, I just left StreamYard and came back. Anyways, about the waiting, I do think that both of them looked great in their own right. Estrada, well, yeah, when he's in a really good shape, you can tell it in all of his weigh-ins. And it was certainly the case the last night, in my opinion. He was looking big, looking, well, good definition, everything physically in top shape. Now, Gonzalez on his side, I mean, since he moved up to 115, I do think this is the best he ever looked, probably, at least from what I can remember. Because if you remember his initial fights at 115, he was looking very pudgy at weigh-ins. And in fact, right after the Yafai fight, in the interview, he was saying that since his return to 115 after the Rung Vesai fights and after that one tune-up fight he had against Moses before having a surgery, he said that this time he's taking boxing seriously, meaning that he's in the gym all the time, which was not the case before. In fact, at least by his own words. He was just having training camps for the last couple of years, but was not really present in the gym all the time. Now, again, by his words, that changed now. And plus, on top of that, I can say that he probably accommodated to 115. He's looking kind of different at the weightings. And just remember some of his fights. I mean, remember Chocolatito in the previous couple of years, whenever we would see an interview of Chocolatito when he was not scheduled to fight, his face was looking huge, so puffy, so bloated, extremely bloated. I haven't seen him that way in the last couple of months. And yeah, at the waiting, he never looks like an Adonis. But I do think for compared to the way he was looking in the past previous years at the weigh-ins, he was looking much better. And on top of that, the last night I was listening to Steve Kim on BDA, and he was saying some interesting things. In fact, well, he was comparing this fight because he visited Chocolatito a few days ago at his training camp, as well as I mean, he also visited him like 2 weeks before the Yafai fight, and he was seeing huge differences in his shape, in his work at the gym. He was saying that 2 weeks before the fight, he was spitting in a cup all the time, trying to make weight, while this time he would be probably able to make the weight even a week or two ago for this fight against Estrada. So that's very promising to me.
Yeah, I could sense that from the weigh-in that both fighters didn't have to cut a significant amount of weight in the last few days. It's been a phased, gradual process, which is correct. No doubt, the sort of magnanimity and the significance of the fight, I think, has reinvigorated both of them. We know Estrada has always been a fighter who can seem completely demotivated when he's not fighting. So he's a big game fighter. His performances can certainly deviate in between, and he can kind of sulk as well. After losing the first Rangvasai fight, we saw him against Felipe Orcuter and Dwayne Beeman, and he was just in some sort of cruise control. He was kind of upset that he didn't get the Surisakat fight straight away, and it kind of impacts his performances on the night. It not looking ideal, but whenever it's a big fight, he'll obviously step it up, and when he's determined to avenge a defeat, as he has done with two previous in the past, then his performances just go to a completely different level. Gonzalez, on the other hand, has a better consistency in the ring. You don't see him having any bad performances, except obviously the second Sarisakat Rangvasai, the rematch. But we know the situation behind that, having a sustained period of bereavement, and clearly mentally and physically he just didn't look right. He was back in Japan with his previous coach Tanaka, and for whatever reason, the partnership didn't work well on the night. But strategically, I think he's a bit better. He realizes that he can't be banging with fighters anymore. He's a boxer. He's a pressure fighter, but he's transitioned. You're right. I agree. He looks better than what he did when he first moved up to 115, when he fought Carlos Cuadras, and his subsequent fights at 115 pounds, both Rangvasai fights. He looked in good shape for the Calya 5 fight, Israel Gonzalez. So weight is not a significant factor in this fight. Gonzalez has just come off beating fighters who are significantly bigger than him. Calya 5 was a bantamweight who came back down to flyweight, so much bigger fighter. And Israel Gonzalez is, where you can just look at the physical dimensions between himself and Gonzalez, and age as well. Israel is not going to remain at 115. He's gonna go up to bantamweight, no doubt about it. So Gonzalez wouldn't be phased by it, even if Estrada rehydrates a little bit heavier. I don't think it's going to matter to him. This fight is not going to be determined on weight. There's not going to be that much clinching. I see Estrada and Gonzalez are not those sort of fighters. They're able to fight out of clinches. That was some of the fight analysis that we showed. They're both cerebral fighters. They're both the skills they embody is just fantastic, both defensively and offensively, and what they're able to do to try and nullify the physicality which one fighter might try and impose on the other at those sort of distances. Estrada would know, if Gonzalez is having those sorts of success, that he'll try and spin him off. He'll try and use his feet, create the angles, turn Gonzalez. And Gonzalez, we know, is ultra proficient when a fighter tends to do that, to re-establish the distance and range. He'll use those clever techniques, be targeting the body to get back inside, bobbing and weaving, slipping, ultra compact. So a lot of components in place. And I was thinking a little bit more, official, about the pound for pound argument, because for me, what this fight represents, it represents definitely a fight in the true essence of pound for pound. What Roman Gonzalez is doing, and we know he's fighting above his optimum weight. And not only that, he's beaten champions who are naturally at 115 pounds, and he's a champion there at the moment, beaten fighters who are significantly bigger than him. So in the true essence of pound for pound, he is a pound for pound fighter. And what Estrada was attempting to do in the first fight, leaving 112 pounds flyweight, coming down to junior fly, and now coming up to 115 pounds. So he's fluctuated between the weights, showing that Gonzalez was the killer. You know, back in 2012, he was the one with the huge reputation. So for Estrada to show that sort of desire to come down in weight, not even take a tune-up fight at 108 pounds, fight Gonzalez, for the championship, try and take his undefeated streak as well. He that's a true reflection of a pound for pound fighter. Now, then he went back up to 112, became the unified champion. Now he's moved up to 115. So both fighters in that sort of context reflect true essence of pound for pound fighters, and that's why, for me, the winner of this particular bout, becoming a unified champion at 115 pounds, they are right up there, top three for me on the Coup of boxing's pound for pound rankings, because we're not too concerned with the ESPN or the Golden Boy, whatever, that sort of politically motivated rubbish. We're talking about the Coup of boxing's pound for pound criteria, which is the best representation, I feel.
In my opinion, too. Yeah. Without any false honesty, I do think that we are doing much better job than in fact that the mainstream pound for pound lists are basically a way to market and promote fighters. Those are the schemes to promote the fighters. Depends on who's fighting on which network, etc. But yeah, we know that top rank ESPN pound for pound rankings, they love having Terence as a number one, etc. Ring, having Canelo.
Logically, officially, if you look at Terence Crawford logically and you put him in context with true pound for pound, he's a 5 feet 9 inch athlete who rehydrates to, around 160 pounds. In between fights, he's 160. So he went down to lightweight, then light welter. Now he's at welterweight. So for Terence Crawford to be adjudicated in the true context of pound for pound, he has to get out of his natural weight class, which now is 147, and go and win titles at 154. So how can he be in the pound for pound rankings? That makes that makes no sense whatsoever.
Yes, or at least to be of the average height and weight for his weight class. Now, look to what you was previously saying about the weight-in. Yeah, I would expect personally, I would expect Estrada to come in the ring a bit heavier. Definitely, I would expect him to be heavier in the ring. I mean, to rehydrate more for the fight. But just like you said, it doesn't matter in this fight for the reasons that you very well described. And so that's why the referee would have a very easy night tonight. Well, I could not say so for the judges, unless their scorecards are pre-filled. Hopefully not. Yeah, but about what you were saying about Chocolatito, one more thing that reassured me the last night listening to Steve Kim was that he said this time when he visited Chocolatito a couple of days ago. They were working a lot on angles, on movements. So that's a good thing for such a fanboy of Chocolatito as myself.
Oh, I mean, Roman Guns, it's one of those fighters of which you have a massive amount of respect and admiration for both fighters, and um, any of the two who suffer a defeat, of course it would, because boxing fans have built up a natural empathy for both fighters, because they've exemplified what boxing fans expect them to do, to take on challenges throughout their boxing career, and therefore, yeah, it's going to me. I don't think it's going to desecrate the legacy of either fighter if they suffer a defeat in this fight, because as far as I'm concerned, Gonzalez is already a first ballot Hall of Fame, one of the best fighters of all time. I don't make the demarcation between lower weight and heavyweight, whatever. Boxing has 17 weight classes. For me, it's all about skills and ability and fighting out of your comfort zone. And what I mean by that is fighters who have sacrificed a large proportion of their lives to go and set camp and fight fighters in other countries and entertain crowds for decades, or however long their boxing career lasts. And both of these fighters have been doing that, fighting in multiple jurisdictions, moving up and up in weights, taking on challenges. And now Gonzalez has the opportunity to unify, and Juan Frisco and El Gallo Estrada has the opportunity of becoming a unified champion in two weight categories. So for me, that's what happens when fighters of this sort of higher echelon fight. Somebody has to lose. Sometimes, the wins and losses become shared. And back to that, the four kings analogy we were talking about with Quadras and Srisikat. Look how many wins and losses they've had. Look how many times they've fought in between one another. Gonzalez and Estrada twice, Gonzalez and Srisikat twice, Gonzalez and Quadras once, Estrada and Quadras twice, Estrada and Gonzalez twice now, and Estrada and Srisikat twice. That's, once again, that's a true reflection of what the four kings represents. Fighting multiple times between four fighters, the elite, the optimum fighters at the weight category, rather than avoiding, as we're clearly seeing at lightweight. So, so many of these new school boxing fans, they really need to go back and complete their high school diplomas.
But absolutely, bro. Look, I was just about to say it. Yeah, I mean, losing this fight for either guy, that it's not something that would make me pull them down off my pound for pound list. I mean, it would be a different thing if they lose to a fighter who's presumed by myself to be a lesser fighter than them. But for Estrada losing against such a fighter as Roman, or for Roman losing against such a fighter as Estrada, well, unless they don't perform under my expectancy, there's really no reason to drop them out many spots, to drag them, to move them down for like 10 spots or etc. Maybe 1, 2, but and plus on top of that, yeah, if Chocolatito wins this fight, as well, we already have him on our top 5, and me personally, if I did my own personal pound for pound list, he would still be at my number 5. So winning this fight, I would definitely, me personally, at least at this point, I think I would put him at my number one spot because he's fighting well above his natural weight. I mean, not well above like Pacquiao, but yeah, he's fighting much bigger guys. Even Estrada, he could be boxing even at excuse me, please, at 118 or something like that. So yeah, well, Estrada definitely I could move him up in between the first and the third place in top three definitely. One interesting point after the weigh-in, I mean before the weigh-in, Juan Francisco Estrada was minus 180.
Yeah,
Right after,
I'm looking at I've got the odds right now. I'm looking at it. You're right.
and right after the weigh-in, he became an even bigger favorite at minus 200.
I'm looking at the position between various markets. Yeah, he's between minus 170. You got 175, 180, 185. So the average. So at the moment, the average between all of the markets, he's now sort of sitting between minus 180 and 187. I've got him at a minus 180 at the moment. But you're right. It shows how some people, whatever they saw in the weigh-in, to me, it really shouldn't be a precipitating factor for such a dramatic sort of fluctuation in the betting odds, because that's not what the fight is going to be. The fight is not going to be decided upon their physical appearance at all. The key for me was there any sign of the fighters being weight drawn? Were they reaching for fluid straight away? Their physical appearance, was their eyes sunk in? Were their skins extremely dry? Was there significant water retention? But both of them looked healthy, and that's the key for me. So the rehydration is not gonna impact their punch resistance that much. That's more going to be dependent on their paths leading up to the fight. And we know Roman Gonzalez has been very comfortable, has looked very good, and his confidence has dramatically been reinvigorated. Hence why we saw such a calm demeanor, not too concerned about making eye contact with El Gallo and not being too brash in his prognostications after the fight. Whereas Estrada is definitely looking a little bit more emotional. He's looking a little bit more pumped up, and he's predicted a knockout victory. So slight concerns there for me. But just going to check Roman's position. He's fluctuated between, what is he, a plus 135 to plus 125. So he's gone from, so his baseline now is roughly about plus 130 from what I can see.
Yes, same for the odds that I was able to find. I mean, except for the French odds, because man, betting here in France is terrible, pure robbery. But yeah, because they have not to jump off the topic, but they have something called as Argel, and it's basically, I mean, for they are preventing the bettors every way possible to bet on the sites based in the other countries. So they have this thing, well, they are basically blocking the access to many international betting sites and giving us shitty ads. But yeah, but by the way, one last point I would make about the weight-in would be that Roman at the weight-in, in his face mostly, he looked very lean. Uh, so yeah, I would expect him to probably rehydrate even less than for his previous fights.
Yeah, I could see the amount of body fat that Roman was carrying was definitely less than what I've seen him before at 115 pounds. A little bit of water weight, a little bit of fat, but there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. In fact, um, you need that fat to support your muscles. Otherwise, you're going to end up risking sort of organ failure. So um, I see no problem with that whatsoever. Um, yeah, they may rehydrate about 6 pounds maximum, I think. So um, that's fine. Um, no problem there whatsoever. It's not going to, as I mentioned once again, I don't think weight is going to be any significant factor.
Yeah, and sorry for cutting you off, but the thing with me is, I mean, I already admitted that honestly, I don't know shit about. Uh, I'm not really able to see some small things at the weighting. I'm not able to find the details. I was never paying too much attention to it. So basically, what I'm looking at the weightings is if there is any significant changes, or something that looks out of order, anything that could look as a huge plus or a huge minus for a fighter. But as long as I'm not seeing anything, that really sticks to my eyes, I'm not too worried about it.
I think in terms of strategy for the fight official, from what I saw, what I deduced from the training footage that was available, Roman was perfecting his body punch uppercuts, certainly with the lead uppercuts to the body and combination uppercuts to the body. So I think it's a wise strategy. Estrada kind of wide, kind of a little bit longer from the body as well. When he's going to that sort of T guard and hooking off the jab, his body is very much exposed. So I think there's great opportunities there for Gonzalez to target the body. We saw what he did targeting the body with mitigating Estrada's lateral movements in the first fight. So I think that's a wise strategy. And what I saw, the way he throws those uppercuts to the body official, I've seen no one do it better. The technique that is visible from my perspective of just sort of watching and narrating over it, it's yeah, it's a beautiful sight.
Oh yeah, yeah, and you know me, you know what I was saying. I mean, in the previous stream, I do think that those uppercuts in the first fight, man, they were extremely useful to Roman. So yeah, definitely, it 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 gives me even more confidence. I was not able to find, and I was not looking for their training footage, but yeah, it's interesting to hear it, and I love it.
Yeah, with Estrada, I saw it a little bit and heard some segments, but it looked like he was really sitting down on his punches, combination punching, really practicing that left hook jab, hooking off the jab, like what he likes to do. Right hooks, sometimes lead uppercuts. I think what we're going to get is a clinique in uppercuts, lead uppercuts to the body. Yeah, and with Gonzalez, with his head sort of at an angle, leaned over, with his has his chin tucked in. So I think Estrada is going to try and work around the guard, certainly hooking around the guard, opening them up, and then try and put in that right uppercut he does when he's dipping around to create the angle, defensively trying to get away from, the left hook of Gonzalez. I think he's going to dip and come back with that right uppercut, try and split the guard if he can. And with Gonzalez, I think he's going to work the body, slow him down, and then come back with his uppercuts. As Estrada's guard is not always, as I mentioned, he tends to fluctuate between a T guard and he will drop the guard when he's at sort of mid range. So Gonzalez's jab will definitely be a key weapon. I think he needs to use it far more than he did in the first fight. And he has one of the best jabs in boxing. And he's straight right, which was working beautifully with Cal Yafai, up against a porous sort of jab, a porous sort of defensive position that Estrada does have. So I think the straight position, the straight punches for Roman will work. I think it would definitely have some significant sort of detrimental impact on Estrada.
Yes, I do think so too. And that's exactly what I wanted to say in the previous show. I want him to throw more straight punches. I mean, I already described how useful his jab could be in this fight, and it's, in my opinion, it already was one of the key factors in the first fight. But he was not. He didn't start using it since the round one. It was a bit later, a couple of rounds later, that he figured out he was catching Estrada with that punch. And that's also because I do think he needs to throw straight punches, because the jab is not telegraphed. He doesn't have to cock it back to swing with it. So just to keep his punches short.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Using the jab against the taller, sort of more lucid fighter to try and cut the distance, then use his clever movements as he does the side to side to get in on the inside. Then if he works the combinations, but Estrada, we know he's I think he's a little bit more emotionally invested in this fight, determined for revenge, and sometimes that can work against the fighter. But with Estrada, it tends to kind of motivate him. We know that. So if he's going to stand there and trade, which I feel he's going to get sucked into, knowing that that almost the positions have reversed a whole 180 degrees. He feels he's the natural 115-pound fighter, the heavier-handed fighter. So he's not going to. I can't see him backing down. That Mexican machismo is going to set in, and that could really light the touch paper for some tremendous wars at certain aspects, throughout the round. So I think, all in all, we're going to get a magnificent fight. I can't see it any other way.
Yeah, me neither, man. But you see, I was thinking a lot since our last show when we were talking about this fight. So yeah, definitely his movement, lateral movement, would probably give Roman hell. But on the other hand, offensively, I do think he should stay there and exchange at spots. But when he exchanges with Roman, to do it with how could I say it, with confidence, to punch with authority. When he chooses to plant his feet and exchange with Gonzalez, that he should throw combos, fast combos, explosive combos, and that way he can manipulate Roman's right glove and sneak the left hook behind it. But also, that I already said, I feel that Estrada does the same thing and is also open to the left hook. Plus, Roman in the first fight was nailing him with those 1 or 2 inch left hooks, just because he started keeping his punches much shorter than Estrada's and was countering him. Yeah, go on. I'll try to remind myself what I was going to say.
The key for me in the outcome of the fight is going to be the first 3 rounds. I think they're going to be super crucial for the rest, in the sense that what is Estrada's mindset like? Is he carrying any excess baggage of what happened with the Quadras fight? You know, a very heavy knockdown, possible could have been knocked out. We've talked about the situation behind it. So is he going to be a little bit tentative, or has he all remnants, psychological remnants and physical remnants of what happened in that fight? Has he overcome them? It's on the back of his mind. He's not the side of fighter than me that will sort of linger and contemplate like that. He's 30 years old, so he's not exactly exhausted in terms of his physical prime. He's there or thereabouts it. Definitely a little bit of degradation physically. We talked about it, but can recover in the fight, and he came back and stopped Quadras. So credit to him. But it's supposed to have been an easy fight, given what happened to Quadras. So Estrada's form coming into the fight is a little bit. There's certainly questions as well. You know, why was it such a difficult fight? Many were predicting, Quadras to be washed up, but we've already intimated that Quadras was also, hugely the same way Estrada is motivated for revenge in this fight, the same way Quadras was for the rematch against Estrada. He was looking to resurrect his career following a period of indifference and having problems with substances and fluctuating between weights and a lot of defeats, losing against Mick Williams or Arroyo as well. So chaos can only describe it. But a tremendously skilled fighter, a little bit of a slapper, we know that, but does have ability. And officials, the fight analysis that you showed some of the subtleties to his game, which boxing observers don't quite understand. The way he set up Estrada beautifully, changed his line of attack, employed some feints to try and sucker him up, for his uppercut and hooks to the body. So that's something I think Gonzalez would have studied, looking at how susceptible Estrada can be to feints and changing attacks. So almost setting him up for a predictable combination, then varying it, and then try and prise open his defense, and knowing that Estrada is going to, open up with those hooks. So he's definitely susceptible, to the lead uppercut, and Gonzalez was throwing that beautifully against Cal Yafai. So, well, there's just, we could talk non-stop right up until the fight, be on the call for about 11 hours. So many aspects to discuss, but no, we're not gonna do that.
Yeah, man. I mean, when you have two fighters like Estrada and Chocolatito with such a wide range of skills, everything can happen, because they're not one-dimensional fighters that you can easily predict the outcome of what would happen in the ring in between them two. That's why it's such a hell to predict what will happen. And
Yeah.
To what you were saying about Estrada, I mean, definitely, I would urge all the people to check out our previous stream, the film analysis for this fight. I think there are many interesting things to see, and Estrada probably not his defense is not one of his strengths, but offensively he's a wonderful fighter and definitely one of the best combo fighters. The way he puts his combos together, how fluid it is, it's just so mesmerizing to watch. And I'm not just saying it out of kindness or to hype up the fight. or try to sound like Max Kellerman, God forbid. But it really, it really is the case. So fluid, so mesmerizing. But so is Chocolatito in his own right.
So, in conclusion to the weigh-in review and an analysis, has anything in the last 72 hours and what you saw yesterday from the weigh-in, has that changed your thoughts on how the fight might go and who may prevail at the end of the day?
Kinda. In fact, maybe not so much, but during our last episode, I forgot to mention probably one or two the most important things I was thinking about this fight, and I haven't expressed myself correctly. So yeah, I'll get into it, but just before that, I'll just tell you I was reading the ring. Go on, sorry.
You were cutting out again. Repeat what you
Oh,
just said.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better. Go on.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I was saying, yeah, I'll get right into it, but I'm just gonna tell you guys that Ioka predicts Chocolatito to win the fight. So he said
Who's
it.
predicting that?
Kazuto Ioka.
Okay.
I can, if you want, it's a quick read. I can read it. So he's saying both of them have considerable skills and capabilities. It's safe to say it will be a high-level battle, but with each round, I think the difference will be in the defense. I think Estrada has a full deck of
Yes.
cards in his artillery as a boxer and has great control of distance, technique, and counterpunches, but I feel that his defense is slightly less than the skills I just mentioned. Also, because he has such wide range of skills as a fighter, there is a slight possibility that he will make a mistake in judging a certain situation during the fight. Roman Gonzalez's style is very stable and constant. He has a stiff guard, uses his upper body, puts pressure on his opponents, and hits multiple combinations to the top and bottom. With that stability, when I think about it, I imagine the victory for Roman Gonzalez. If Estrada wins, it will be because of exquisite counterpunch ability. If he can time his counters well, Estrada's victory can be expected, but to create the opportunity to get the timing of his counter on Roman Gonzalez would not be easy. With that said, I predict Roman Gonzalez to win.
I'll tell you what, that was a fantastic little statement. Very accurate in his analysis of both fighters and their strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, so spot on, bang on, and at
Yeah.
the same time, you can see the way he's thinking. He's saying something that nobody else is saying in boxing journalists, fans, etc. Channels, doesn't matter. We all like to to watch fighters. Uh, we like fighters to show us a wide a range of skills, different skills, etc., a full bag of tricks. But he's telling you that sometimes you can get lost into it, you know. So
Now that's great to see. Kazuto obviously has a vested interest, massive vested interest in this fight, as he's looking for a unification showdown with the victor, and he's naturally, we can see that he's expressing his interest. He wants that fight straight away, and let's hope whatever happens after the early hours of the morning, given that both fighters come out healthy, they're not sustained too much damage. Who knows? Depending on the outcome, if it's a draw, I expect an immediate that they'll run it back straight away. But if it's a decisive victory for one or the other, then I gather that'll be the end of the saga between Gonzalez and Estrada, and the winner moves on to try and become undisputed, or even in the interim, if he can take the belt off Jervin and Kanyas, who's pretty much doing absolutely nothing with the belt. So he picks up 2 and fights the winner who has 2 as well, some sort of a showdown. Maybe for New Year's Eve or something in Japan, something like that would be a perfect scenario. But no, we can't get too excited. Boxing always tends to sort of disappoint, so we'll leave it as that. But in my sort of conclusion for an outcome, I don't know. I'm back down to an equilibrium position of I really don't know. You know what, official? I really don't care, because I have massive respect for both fighters. Whoever wins, so be it. Whoever loses, so be it.
Corruption. Are you saying that this fight is making you gun shy?
Yeah, because I'm not really looking at it as you know, I'm a very protracted and heavy speculator on fights, but today I'm a boxing fan, so the betting doesn't even matter. Whether I win or lose money, absolutely no significance to me. This is about a spectacle. This is about a contest. This is about entertainment. This is about greatness. So anything else is secondary to me. So whoever prevails, so be it. If I stay with my original pick, so be it. But I really don't know. Not concerned. So it's not a case of being gun shy, but to me, a prediction is not essential for me.
Yeah, I get you.
I've become so much of a recluse, as you know, in boxing. I wouldn't say a part-timer, but it's a recluse that is driven by economic factors as well as a tremendously turbulent schedule between work, travel, family, etc. So there are not that many fights that, as you have obviously realized in the last sort of year or so, that inspire me to come back and do film analysis and invest a great deal of time in talking about.
Yeah, right.
Naturally, this was one of them. As you've heard me on shows going back 6-7 years, that I've always talked about that this rematch is the only fight I'm interested in boxing. That's what I want. So here we are. So when I talk about that, an outcome to me is that comes naturally from the heart. And there's audit trails of me talking about the first fight and wanting this fight for years and years on different sort of shows, etc. So I'll sit down and I'll enjoy it. And if I don't have a horse in the race, then so be it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, what else can you do after all these years of waiting for this very rematch than to sit down, relax, and enjoy the show, man? I mean, and for me too, this is, I mean, as far as the predictions goes, this was the hardest, really the hardest fight to predict. But I would not say that my opinion changed, but on the last show I forgot to mention one or two very important things, and I was also not able to express myself correctly, the right way, to say the things I wanted to say the right way. So without going through the whole breakdown that we already did more than enough, I would just mention one or two things. I was thinking, yeah, definitely, Estrada would give him hell if his footwork from the Ranguisa rematch would show up. Like you said, the lateral movement combined with his combinations, it could give Roman hell, and he has more explosiveness left than Roman has. So he would be able to outquick Roman in the exchanges. But on the other hand, there are some other things that I was thinking. I mean, yeah, even if we see the best possible footwork from Estrada, again, in the exchanges, I almost forgot that in the exchanges, Roman would not be Carlos Quadras, because Quadras, man, he was getting hit a lot, but his defense, I mean, he was a wonderful fighter, but his defense lacked definitely, at least compared to Roman. And Roman, man, he has an extremely good defense, like we said, for an offensive fighter, such an offensive fighter. His defense is fucking incredible. So I could see Roman winning a lot of the exchanges, and despite him, I mean, his hand speed also suffering, being slowed down compared to this to his prime, but still he keeps his punches short. And if he continues on keeping his punches short against Estrada, I could easily see him, winning a lot of exchanges. And plus, on top of that, if him and his team saw the same things that I've seen from the first fight, and that the adjustments that he made in the first fight were conscious and not unconscious, then I could expect him to be very well tactically prepared, strategically prepared. And basically, this fight is a battle between a fighter who's physically better, or is presumed at least to be in a physically much better condition in Estrada, versus a fighter who I think has more technical capabilities. And
You're cutting out again.
can you hear me now? 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Hold on.
No, can't hear you, man. Your firewall has been breached. Man, the Coup d'etatofboxing, I've got to use some of my discretionary budget to hire an engineer to improve his telecommunications.
Definitely. I'm taking all the help. Man, sorry for that, guys. Yeah, but
either that or a bounty hunter.
Yeah. I'm hoping you're going to be kind enough to choose the first option. But yeah, I was saying this is a fight between a fighter who has physical advantages in Estrada, versus a fighter who has, I mean, kind of tactical, strategical, and tactical and strategical advantages, as well as better rounded skills. So it just depends on which Estrada, which how is he going to fight. But I kind of see why Estrada is a favorite, and I do think kind of it may be contradictory, but I do feel like he's favored for for a reason. But I picked Chocolatito, and I'm not sure if it's gonna be by decision or even by stoppage late. Possible stoppage, but
yeah,
I'm not sure. But I'm picking
somehow.
Just one thing, I'm not sure. Maybe it is that I convinced myself, somehow forced myself to pick Chocolatito, but no, honestly, I think that I picked him for the right reason. So my prediction is Chocolatito.
Good.
Sorry.
I think financially it makes sense as well with the underdog, and he's a strong underdog because this is as good as a 50-50 fight. So that's fine. But one thing I noticed is that the difference in hand speed was far more pronounced back in 2012 than it is now in 2021. Estrada's hand speed was significantly faster back then, younger athlete as well. But over the years, his hand speed has definitely, I wouldn't say deteriorated, it's just that his genetics sort of, he's not genetic, but he's transitioned into a different fighter because he's looking to sit down on these punches. So he's landing heavier punches. He's not varying the power of his punches as much as he was back then. He'll shoe shine a little bit, but he was better because he's moving laterally. So you can't, when you're moving laterally, you can't, by nature, scientifically, you can't sit down on your punches. Now he's trading, he's become a little bit more attritional in that sense, but he can mix it up with great footwork. Whereas Gonzalez has never really been blessed with sporadic hand speed. But what Gonzalez does better, so it's a full 180-degree shift. He'll take the power off his punches to increase his hand speed. That's the extra dynamic that is implemented into his fight makeup. So Gonzalez has not only improved his defense, but I think he's transitioned his hand speed and his punching power, so he can vary his speed of his punches at times. So that's how many variations he's added to his game plan as he's matured over the years. That's what, for me, makes him such a remarkable fighter. To have that humbleness and do so, but necessitated not only by being knocked out, realizing that you've got to try and improve and become more versatile when you're fighting against fighters who are much bigger than you, physically stronger than you, and can punch, no doubt, just as detrimentally to you as well. So he's thought, what can I do to try and improve my overall game? So he's done that, and it's a credit to him, and that's what's sustained, I think, his longevity in the game.
Fantastic point. Man, I wasn't consciously thinking of it, but you're totally right, corruption. I mean, yeah, Chocolatito's hand speed degradation has been very gradual and slow, steady, nothing exceptional when it comes to his hand speed slowing down, while Estrada's remarkably slowed down, but for the said reasons. So yeah, because even in the last episode, I was telling you, uh, I think when I was watching his fight against Villoria, in the first 3 rounds, it was impossible to me to see, despite me being concentrated 100% on what I was watching. It was impossible for me to see which punches from Estrada were landing on Villoria and which were not, because of that excellent, incredible hand speed that he was showcasing back then at that time.
Okay, well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. The sneak attack has somehow transitioned into a full ground and aerial assault. We've gone deep into the dynamics of the fight, but it's good because, as you were mentioning, there's so many points and there was so much film analysis that wasn't incorporated into the first fight that has a factor. So yeah, want to thank everybody who was able to join us for the live show. Thank you very much, as always, and yeah, I'm sure so many different opinions on the outcome and the way the fight is going to go as well. So yeah, good to see that there's a lot of invested interest in this fight as well. So yeah, so official, I don't know if there's anything else you want to cover, but I think that's pretty much it from myself.
No, that would be it. I would just say that See, I do think in some of his previous fights, Estrada didn't suffer because he was less worse prepared than usual, like in his fight against Beamon. But rewatching that fight, I thought that it was Beamon's output and his hand speed, so not necessarily power, but hand speed, that were giving Estrada's problems. But he was too opened up, Beeman himself. Not a great defense, so Estrada was able to adapt and use it to his advantage to land counter punches, etc. But yeah, I do think that styles really do matter. So that's also kind of a part of the reason why I kind of picked Roman Gonzalez. And I would say I would like to thank everybody coming here, writing in the chat room. One and only John Gonzalez, Subash, aka Amphil, Apology Man, Alone. Also, some new faces, boxing loser stars. Yeah, that's him. And yeah, that would be it for me. Corruption and all of you listening to us, I hope you're going to enjoy the show because I'm definitely going to enjoy it. And see you soon.
Absolutely. I'm going to fire up the 65-inch. I'm going to turn off the phone. There's going to be no Discord chat. I'm just going to be invested into the entire card. My man Harito Kiyoguchi, he's fighting somebody smaller than a garden gnome. He's about 4'10". And I'm also really looking forward, as I mentioned, to the Cecilia Brickhouse and Jessica McCaskill fight. I'm really hoping Brickhouse can exact revenge because I'm kind of disgusted with McCaskill's trash talking against a very, dignified, humble champion who resorted to no such complaints or belittlement or, condemnation, you know, accepted defeat. It must have hurt bitterly, her first professional defeat, and looked in good shape, looks very confident. She's predicting a knockout, which kind of surprises me because Breckhouse is not a power puncher. She's a boxer and fighting against a much bigger fighter. Not a wise strategy. If she boxes, she'll win the fight. If she gets drawn into a toe-to-toe battle, I'm not sure at 38 as well whether that's the wise strategy. But in any case, yeah, that is a highly intriguing fight as well. So overall, a brilliant card. So I'll be invested in that one from top to bottom. And official scorecard and myself will be back on Sunday evening. Definitely, we're not going to miss an opportunity to recap and review what should be the fight of the year. So on that note, thank you to all who joined us. Official, thank you as well. I know it's a busy schedule for yourself as well. So,
Oh, it's a pleasure.
and on that note, sayonara. Peace out.